During this video, we're going to learn how to model in Cinema 4D using just primitives, a Boolean tool, and then be able to export our models and 3D print them. I hope you enjoy it. While you model your figures, keep in mind it's good practice to have everything planned out ahead of time. It's also good to have some visuals. You can either search for your characters online, or if you want to design them from scratch, make sure you're doing a bunch of sketches and you know what the thing's going to look like from different views. Just a couple examples. These were done by a series of Pokemon characters. So this is the image that was used for this print, just using primitives. And here's a third example, going with the same theme and just using primitives. So to get started, we're going to go up here to our primitives and start selecting primitives that will work for a character, starting with the largest parts of the character and then working our way to the smaller ones. So let's say we're going to start with this capsule to create a body for our character. We can adjust the size here, and you can do any modeling that you want, but if you want to just keep the primitives how they are, you're more than welcome to do that. So let's say we start with the body of the character, and then we're going to grab another primitive, let's say a cylinder, and we're going to create a neck out of this. So I can shrink this down to a size that I think will work for the character itself. If you're working from an image, just get as close as you can to it with eyeballing. If it's something that you design, it's always good to have sketches as well, and rotating around your model as you work will help understand in space where you're at. If you hold Option on the keyboard and grab off to the side, that allows you to pan around too, so that's a good way to navigate while you're modeling. So I just dropped down the pill for the body. It created a very small neck. So with that cylinder or the neck selected, I'm going to bring it up just a little bit so it has a little bit more of a neck. It's time to combine these two. Notice when I have the cylinder selected, you can see there's a yellow demarcation that says where the rest of the cylinder is. We don't want that. To 3D print it, it needs to be basically hollow. So if I zoom way in, I can see the cylinder inside, and we don't want that. We want to remove that. So in order to do that, we're going to do what's called a bool, or a boolean. Right up here underneath this icon, we can see that bool is to the right. So you just click and hold the array icon, go over to bool, let go. It will put a bool right here in your objects manager. And then we're going to take these two objects and put them inside a bool. So holding cylinder and clicking shift and then clicking the capsule will allow me to select both of those. So I take those, drag them up underneath my bool, and notice that it took that cylinder and it cut out the capsule. And we don't want that look. So if I go to bool, click on it, and go down to Boolean type, it's underneath the Objects tab. Right now we're on A subtract B. That's saying that the cylinder, which is A, is subtracting the capsule, which is B. I can switch that to union. I've got A union B now. So when I zoom in now and look inside this, I'm not going to see the cylinder. It's basically just the capsule, hollow. And if I navigate to see the top of it, you can see that there's absolutely nothing inside here. It's basically just a hollow area, and that will allow me to 3D print this object. With those other parts inside of each other, what happens is the 3D printer will print those independently, and everything will basically just fall apart at the seams, and we don't want that. So I've taken those two objects, highlighted them by clicking cylinder, holding shift, highlighting capsule. I drag those underneath the bool. Notice that that arrow is facing down. It's facing the left right now. When it's facing down, that means that those two are inside the bool. Now I'm going to select everything. Click on bool, hold shift, click the bottom of your selection, and now we're going to right click and go down to connect objects and delete. That will connect everything. It will delete all that hierarchy and turn it into one shape. So now I have bowl number 1, and this is just one shape and it's printable. Now I can go in and finish up my character, going step by step and shape by shape. Let's say that I want the head to be round and shrink it down so it would look more normal. So now I've got a head. I can navigate around just to make sure it's where I want it to be. If it's not, I can use my little arrows to put it there. And I'm going to put those two shapes inside a bool. So I go back to the array, select bool. I'm going to click sphere, hold shift, click bool 1. Drag those underneath this bool. And with bool selected, I'm going to go down to A union B again. And now I just highlight all of them. By the way, you can drag across them if you don't want to click on them. Drag across everything to select it. Right click, go down to connect objects and delete, and I'm off to the next shape. So let's say I want to start bringing some arms in. I could use cylinders or capsules or whatever I want to do for that. I can shrink the size of this shape down. And now I need to rotate it, so I use my rotate tool. And let's say I have one arm kind of sticking up. I'll navigate it to the area that I want it. So I've got an arm sticking out of there. Now I can take these shapes and I can bool them. So I go back to array, click bool, click cylinder, hold shift, click bool, drag it underneath the bool. Go back to union, select them all, right click, connect objects and delete. And as I do that and start to build this, this figure, I can get as complex as I want. Let's say that I finish off the other arm, it's over here, the legs. If I want to make it a little bit more detailed, I can go into this little drop down here and go into sculpting and refer to the other sculpting video for tips and tricks on how to sculpt. But you can take the surface quality and start to manipulate it and form it however you want by adding textures. When you're finished, we can go back to startup, and with that bool selected, let's say I'm going to call this character. I'm ready to 3D print it. With the character selected, I can go to File, Export, and export these as an OBJ. If you do that, they'll be 3D printable. Always select desktop. Call it char for character. For scale, I'd switch over to millimeters. It's not imperative, but it'll drop in the slicer easier. Hit OK, and then my character will show up on the desktop. And you can always open it up and preview it to see how things are looking. And obviously this isn't a groundbreaking character that I'd want 3D printed, but just for demonstration purposes, you can see how these characters are put together. If you want to make things look more realistic, there's a few ways to do that. There's sculpting tools and some other adjustments that we can make with some drop downs up here. Underneath this icon is subdivision surfaces. If you take your model and put it as a child in subdivision surfaces, notice how it smooths some areas out. That's one way to make adjustments. And then you can go in the subdivision surface editor, and you can bump up the amount of divisions that you add to your model. Another way to do that is to select your model and go into sculpting tools. Right here is a sculpt down, or right here is a sculpture drop down. You can click subdivide, and it will take a lot of those polys and basically add to the poly count. So that bumped it up and smoothed things out pretty well. You can also go into your layout for sculpture. So instead of startup, go down to sculpting, click that, and then you have all these tools at your disposal so you can make any adjustments to the surface quality that you want.